Now for one of my favorite aspects in the design process, figuring out a group of colors, a color palette that we want to use with our design. And I'm the worst guy in the world at mixing colors, at figuring out which colors go really, really nicely with other colors, right? I'm terrible at it. But thankfully, there's a really handy panel inside Illustrator, which I'll introduce you to, which makes this really, really easy. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to establish some kind of a base color, something to base the rest of the design off of. And again, we'd have to consult with our client. And again, we'd have to ask them questions like, what is it you're trying to convey? What is it that you would like to express to your customers, to the marketplace? Very similar questions that related to choosing fonts, right? It's sort of the same conversation, right? And just like fonts, colors convey an idea, or colors can convey a message. For example, red can mean things like power or love or a warning or an alert of some sort. Blue is very conservative or very confident. You know about a lot of this already, right? This is in our everyday lives. So what I want to do is I want to figure out at least a single color that conveys what it is the client wants to convey. And if you'll recall my original layout, I had gone with sort of a dark red, right? For our fictitious karate school. So what I'm going to do here is, once again, I'm just going to zoom in on some white space over on the side here. And this is how I usually do things. I'm going to start off with a rectangle. Very exciting. Maybe a square or a rectangle, something like this. And what I want to do is I want to pop open a set of palettes that are going to help me out here. So first of all, I'm going to head up to the window menu and then down to color. And that pops us into our color panel. And then back up to the window menu, and I'm going to go down to color guide. There we go. And one more. Back up to window, and then down to swatches. Now, originally, I had these guys all sitting over on the right-hand side of my layout, and what I did is I just pulled them out just to keep my screen nice and simple. So you might find these guys all docked over on the right-hand side of the Illustrator interface. That's just fine. Okay, now I have this original rectangle that I created. He's filled with black on my screen, at least to start off. That's fine. I don't really care about that. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to head into the color panel and I'm going to go and set CMYK values for that base color, that root color. So I've already figured out where I want to start, right? Yourself, you might want to start off with a pre-existing swatch. Maybe I could start off with something like that, or, maybe a light blue or whatever it is that I'm after, right? But as I say, in my case, I've already figured out my CMYK values. And again, I'm using cyan, magenta, yellow, and black sliders inside the color panel. So here we go. My cyan value is going to be 15. So I'm going to go ahead and type that right in there. Tab, magenta is going to be 100. Tab, and yellow is going to be 90. And then tab, and then the K, which stands for black, is going to be 10. Just like that. Okay, so this is, again, my root color that I'm going to be basing my entire library of colors, my color group, my palette of colors off of. Okay, great. So there we go. Now, as I had mentioned previously, I am terrible at mixing colors, at figuring out what colors go nicely with other colors, right? So here's my trick. This is how I get around all this. So what I'm going to do is I have my rectangle selected here. I'm going to hold down Alt or Option, and I'm going to drag out a copy, something like that. Just sort of offset it down and to the right, just a little bit, something like that. And then earlier we learned this keyboard shortcut, Control or Command D, to duplicate out. And I'm going to duplicate out a bunch of these guys, maybe something like this, right? Okay, wonderful. Now, the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the second rectangle. That would be the first copy of my original rectangle, right? Go ahead and grab that guy. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to head into the Color Guide panel. This guy is the secret weapon in Illustrator that I was referring to. Now, just make sure to click on this little icon right in that top corner. We want to make sure that our current fill color is loaded into the Color Guide panel. And if I drop down the Color Guide panel menu, this main menu, we'll find all kinds of different color groups. Now, if you remember from your high school art classes, you might remember things like triads and tetrads and compound and high contrast and all this kind of stuff, right? At least that's what it reminds me of. So we can go into these different color groups. So for example, if I scroll all the way up to the top, I can go into the complementary colors. And if there's any colors in here that I think might fit my layout, might suit my layout, then I can go ahead and choose that color. For example, maybe this sort of light green there. Click on that guy, and that guy fills in for that swatch. Great. All right, so now I've locked in that color. I'm going to move down to the next rectangle now. And then I'll go back to the color guide panel, drop down his menu, and then maybe this time I'll switch down to complementary 2, for instance. And I can take a look at all of the colors available inside that group of colors. Maybe I want to go with a slightly darker red. Maybe I want to do some shading, something like this, right? And this is literally how I create my palette of colors. Go down to the next rectangle and repeat, something like this, right? So you might want to take some time going through these different sets of colors that we have available inside the color guide panel and create a group of colors, a color palette that we can begin using for our layout. So maybe what I'll do here, just to give you an example, is I'll go and create a variety of colors. And all of these colors are going to go very nicely with our original base color that we already set up, right? So give me just a moment. And as I say, I'm going to go and throw in just a few more colors here that I think might suit our karate school website, right? Something like this. Now, again, myself, I don't really have any hard and fast rules in terms of how many colors should I have available, how many colors should I create. I like to have a decent variety, maybe 5 or 10, somewhere in there, right? But again, for myself anyway, there's no hard and fast rules. And then last but not least, what I want to do is inside the swatches panel, I want to create a new color group. So check this out. Here's what I'm going to do. All of these rectangles that I've created here, I'm going to select them all. Just like this, click and drag to highlight them all there. And then in the bottom of the swatches panel, we have this icon right here, new color group. Go ahead and click on that, and it prompts us for a name. I'm going to call this Jeff's color group. There we go. And then I'm going to go ahead and click on OK. And now what we have inside the bottom of the swatches panel, we have that new color group, and there's all of the colors that you and I just discovered via the color guide panel. So now, if I shift back over to my wireframe, as I start building out the wireframe, building the wireframe into an actual design, I've got all of the colors that I want to use right at hand, right inside the swatches panel.